What's going on, gamers? Hopefully everybody has been having a great week. In this video, of course, we're going to be talking about Xbox Helix and PlayStation 6 and how Xbox Helix, no matter what anybody thinks, will not be able to compete with PlayStation 6 due to the brand being diluted. And that even if you listen to what Matthew Ball said here, which is what I'm going back to highlight, on top of looking at the sales, you don't have an install base to build outside of America to even be able to have enough to have any exclusives. And I've been trying to tell people that, but they just did not want to listen to me. At this right here, he says they're finally admitting it, and I don't like it one bit, right? Matthew Ball on Game Business talked about the current Xbox markets and makes it pretty damn clear for those of us who aren't from USA or UK, right? And we know they can't even sell that much in the UK. But the thing here is he admitted that Gears of War was actually going to sell less copies, if you guys don't remember, and Clockwork. And he says it right here. Here it is. Question: when shifting to console exclusives, Gears of War, Clockwork should expect to sell fewer games. Like literally admitting this. And this is especially true in places like Europe and Japan, where Xbox has a relatively small presence, right? Because if you're going to make something exclusive, the point of that is to actually push your hardware, but not when you do this and jack it up to $800. The moment Xbox went $800, that's just way too far. It's like, you can't be more expensive than PlayStation and expect to compete. It never worked in the first place. You actually had a $299 console, and that still didn't help you compete against PlayStation. You still got absolutely destroyed. You see, the thing with Xbox fanboys is they can't realize that you already had the $500 and $300 Series S model the whole generation. There was even times where they dropped the price of the market before the market was actually getting insane. The Series S was at one point was $250 a lot of times with Game Pass. Series X went on sale, and they were just sitting there. Even back then, there was no crying about physical, none of that, because you weren't buying physical games, and you still don't. We ain't even buying Gears of War E-Day. I looked at the top selling games on Xbox store recently. Gears of War E-Day is not even up there. And remember, that beta is coming out today. Let's see what those numbers are going to be looking like on Steam, because that's going to be the market you're going to have to sell at, because Xbox fanboys are going to get on Game Pass to play it and then drop it off and move forward, because it's not going to be a game that's going to last like before. And it's sad that Gears has to be like that, because I don't want it to fail, but that's Microsoft that's limiting it, and the CEO who thinks she knows what she's doing, when she clearly does not. So relatively small presence. Matthew Ball says in each and every one of those markets, PC tends to be the most popular gaming platform, at least for the titles we're talking about. You know what's so funny that he says that? But yet, we made 2 videos yesterday showing you that PC does not care about Gears of War. And actually, we're going to get a even more deeper analysis today with the open beta, and then we're going to check out the pre-orders and see what's going on with that. No doubt about that, because you have to do that, because Microsoft should be watching it. I'm actually doing them a favor, because you should be doing what I'm doing. Like, okay, let's see, we made the beta open to everybody today, let's see what happens. You don't have to pay for anything. But like he was saying, he's making it clear that Xbox hardware is irrelevant outside of America. And even then, you can't win in there, and it's diluted. In each and every one of those markets, read, PC tends to be the most popular gaming platform, at least for the titles we're talking about. Windows is already where the world plays. And that's very important, or that's a very important slogan for the company. We strongly encourage all players who want to play those titles to do so in those markets. You know what's so funny? It's almost like you don't need an Xbox again. And I'm telling you that I already know. Right? It's right here in front of you. And that's a very important slogan for the company. We strongly encourage all players who want to play those titles to do so in those markets. It's not about Xbox hardware outside of America. He's letting you know that. You're not going to be able to compete with PlayStation 6. You can say what you want about that physical stuff, but the majority of the world does not buy physical anymore. They're mostly digital. And like I said, the solution to that problem will be to go to Nintendo Switch 2. You know what I mean? Because that's where you're going to get your physical preservation at. But if somebody tells you that they strongly encourage you to do so in those markets, PC tends to dominate in those markets, meaning Europe and Japan, then he's basically saying, I'm not making Xbox exclusives to sell games outside of America on Xbox hardware and to move Xbox hardware. those games are going to be strongly encouraged by players who are in Europe and in Japan to play it on PC. He just said it. And he says, I swear it blows my mind that they're strongly encouraging players in Europe or Japan to play games like Gears of Clockwork on PC. I'm totally floored. I remember this. Like, it's like insane when you think about this, because the idea here is that it's already in front of Xbox fanboys' face. And with PlayStation doing the disc stuff, you could put that optional disc drive, because it's, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter, because it's not going to change anything. I'm telling you, Xbox Helix is dead on arrival, because nobody in Europe is going to want to buy it and nobody in Japan is going to give a damn. The only world that it is going to exist to even be looked at is America. And that's not enough. You think when the Switch sold 157 million consoles, which is where it's at, PS2 and all that, do you know how much they sold in Europe and Japan? Outside of America too? No, America's a strong market too. It's part of that foundation. It's like if you split it down 3, you would see that. But if you're only in America, which they don't even want to pay more than $600, $500 for consoles. They were complaining about how expensive that was. PS5 Pro, $700. They were complaining. Because a lot of people don't have that much money and they have to cater it towards other stuff. What makes you think an Xbox Helix, which is now more irrelevant than any other Xbox announcement in history, that's going to be well over $1,000, is somehow going to be looked at? Nobody's going to care. That's why you should never trap exclusives in that ecosystem. So remember, it was told to you, yeah, like he says, it blows my mind that they're strongly encouraging players in Europe or Japan to play games like Gears of Clockwork. And this is what I don't understand about this company. Because they're basically saying, if PC does not give me my sales, then what are you doing to the studios? Come on, let's use our brain power, guys, our thinking power skills. Clockwork costs $500 million. Gears costs $400 million. But Gears is at the $500 million with the marketing and the PS5 port, which is going to be coming to PlayStation, trust me, because it's going to flop. What happens if you put those games day one on Game Pass and you rely on Steam that's not going to support them? Do you know how much money they're going to lose? See, this is what I don't understand about this company. And this is the only company that tells you not to focus on its hardware. But you know what he's saying too? It's dead. Xbox is dead. Like in Europe and Japan. Ain't nobody buying it. We know that. That's why we're pulling out stocks. People were saying that. So how do you think that the Xbox Helix is going to be able to compete with PlayStation 6 when it's still a worldwide phenomenon? It's just a question that you need to answer for yourself. The answer is that it's not going to be able to, and that it's over. And that it's been over, and that you're just coping. So what's going to be competing with PlayStation is Nintendo. Yeah, that's it. What Microsoft can compete at is in the publishing world. Everybody knows that. That's it. But they had to monopolize to do that. Otherwise, they couldn't compete. That'd be left to just Halo, Combat Evolved results, Gears of War E-Day getting ready to flop, and Forza just carrying as usual. And they sold off the State of Decay studio. You see what I mean? Everything actually got thrown away. When you really look at the reality without the buy button, Xbox is literally dismantled. They couldn't do it like that. What I'm saying is that when they felt so bad, it just kept on hitting the buy button from the Microsoft money pool outside of the gaming division. It's literally over, and it's been over with. And Xbox fanboys are so asleep, they can't actually see that. I'm like, you do know that you really are in a farther grave than Sega. Because Sega actually went to just be a publisher and made it back, and it's actually fine. They didn't have no $1 trillion company option outside of that, like some Sega software enterprise backing them up. They had to actually find a way to do that. Microsoft felt so bad they actually put that company $100 billion in the hole outside of the gaming division. So they failed even more because they're still in a worse position and more dead than before they did that. Like, that's when you realize, like, okay, yeah, just stop, because this is so bad. We just need to be done. If I can't be a publisher, then, well, you know, I'm just going to leave gaming and just focus on being an enterprise software company and fix my broken operating system. You see, that's so insecure. Apple's operating system is significantly better than Windows and way more secure. Not even close. But the thing is that, yeah, so you should look at the Xbox Helix for what it's going to be, a niche, hardcore option. It's not going to sell millions and millions and millions and hit like 10 million even in the first. I said, no. It's barely going to be able to sell. And they know this, but they're still playing this game with you to just get back whatever they want to get back over time. Xbox Helix is cooked. PlayStation 6 is cooked in a certain sense. What I mean by that is that it's not going to do the results you're going to want it to do at launch. But over time, Sony will make up for that because they're going to do a lot of price drops and deals. The market's going to crash in 2028. But I don't believe the PlayStation 6 is going to be able to launch at like $500 or $600, something like that. Now, that would be nice, right? Yeah, if they'll be able to do that. That's why I said I think like $800. And Sony's going to have to subsidize even making it $800 because they actually have to be successful. Xbox Helix does not have to be successful for Microsoft. It's not 60% of the company like PlayStation is 60% of Sony now. And Nintendo Switch, Nintendo's 100% gaming damn near. Though they have movies now and they're making TV shows and theme parks and all that. They've expanded out, but they're at their core 100% gaming. Whereas like if you look at Xbox, what percentage of that is Microsoft? Not even 5% or something. I mean, it's really, really low. When you think about how much money they're making outside of that in the actual real company, they could give a damn about Xbox. They just want to get their money back. That's it. Other than that, like you should like realize too that Elder Scrolls 6, highly doubt that's going to be an exclusive. It's going to be on Steam. When I say exclusive, I mean it's not going to be on Steam. It's only going to be on that to focus on the hardware. Microsoft's not trying to do that. Like I said, they're in a situation like the Steam machine. Like, you can't gamble that. What you want is you want to sell an extra 17 to 20 million copies of Elder Scrolls 6 on PlayStation and Steam and Switch too. You see? Why would you pass that up? If that game is $80, which they could do that with Elder Scrolls, or let's say if they make it 70, even then, what is 10 million copies on PlayStation? That's $700 million. Steam, 700 million. See, that's 1.4 billion. When tax $1.5 billion. You think they're going to pass that up? And there may be early access aspects too. They can end up making even more money. You have to understand, imagine how much money would need to be made if you were going to sell hardware and make even $1 billion. Just start thinking about that. If your hardware is $1,000, right? And you sold just 1 million, what does that mean? You see what I mean? It's better to get all that money from software. The Xbox Helix is not going to make Microsoft the money they want to make. It's going to be through being a third-party publisher and through services and stuff like that. You can't rely on hardware to make you the most money. That's not going to work. It's actually historically hardware is sold at a loss. And what if they don't subsidize? Then they can't drop the price just like Steam. I'm telling you, how could the Helix, if you look at the price of the Steam machine right now, be cheaper than the Steam machine? Look at the price of the Steam machine without a controller. It's like $1,049. Now add a controller. You're talking about getting a disk drive too, which is going to probably cost you close to $100. Let's say if the Helix is like $1,400. Like that's what I'm saying. Steam machine is in the $1,100 to $1,300 range. 2 terabyte. Think about it. What's 1 terabyte Helix? I mean, come on. I'm thinking like $1,300, $1,500 minimum. I think they'd be subsidizing to do that too. I'm thinking $1,500 plus dollars. But they're not going to subsidize. Because like I said, just look at the price of the PS5 Pro. Look at the price of the Steam Deck. Look at the price of the Steam machine. You have to be naive if you think the Xbox Helix is not going to be massively expensive for a console. Way outside of the console players' thought bracket. Definitely for Xbox, that where nobody wants to buy in Europe or Japan. So the rest of the world is saying no. They're sticking to PC. And only a sub-market in America is going to look at it. And even then, that's way outside of their range. If we're just going to go to the PS6, because that's just what Sony does. They sell hardware, and they're going to subsidize because they have to. But they can make that up by all digital and having their exclusive sell controllers and all that. They're actually going to be fine, and PlayStation Plus and all of that. And Sony historically has always sold at a loss. They're going to do the same thing with the PS6. But the PS6, even though it may sell less consoles than PS5 and PS4, is still going to sell significantly more than the Xbox Helix. And that is a fact. And there's nothing you could do about that. It's already set in stone. If you believe that that's not going to be the case, then you just don't understand the gaming industry at this point. The Switch 2 is going to be eating Helix's lunch easily. The PlayStation 6 is going to try to be able to compete and sell with that. When that market crashes, Nintendo's going to be doing price drops and deals. Trust me. You're going to keep it like that. That's why they're only doing a $50 price increase. It's going to keep selling. With the Helix, you would be lucky to see it sell 10 million. It's not even going to sell like the Series X or S. I'm telling you, it's not happening. Think about those prices. Look how cheap it was at that time. And even then, PlayStation was still smoking. And most people were buying a $499 console. You see? So it's right there in front of your face. While Microsoft starts getting that expensive, nobody's going to bother wasting their time. It's going to be so dead, it's not going to even be funny. So let me know what you guys think about this as usual. Become a member, leave a tip down below. Like, comment, and subscribe later. Keep on gaming no matter what platform you're on.